Here. Desert bag. And the people of God in all various shapes and sizes. Okay. Well, do you all remember back in September at our retreat the story that we had about Abraham and Sarah? And how God called them to a new place. Who remembers all of that? Do you remember how God brought Abraham out to see the night sky and asked him to count the stars? And Abraham came so close to God, and God came so close to Abraham. You remember that? And you remember the story how we heard that even though Abraham and Sarai were really old, still God gave them children, and their children had children, and their children had children, and then even their children had children, and on and on and on and on until your grandparents were born, and even they had children, and they had children, and you were born. A wonderful families, many as the grains of sand. You remember that? Well, today we're going to hear another story about Abram. A story from before the time Isaac was born. Get rid of all those. A story from before the time Isaac was born, when God was trying to impress Abram with his need for his people to lead a righteous life. It takes place in a city very much like the one where we live now. In the olden days, that city was called Sodom and Gomorrah. But today, after generations and generations have passed, we call that place DIO. A short form for degenerates interested in ordination. Now listen very carefully. We have a lot to learn. The desert. The story begins in the desert, an empty place, but a place where Abraham knew his thoughts ran clear. So he still had with him the travelers, the men who brought him the news that God would give him a son through Sarai. And as these visitors departed, it was Abraham who traveled with them to the crest of the hill and showed them the way to the next place where they were going. It was the place where his nephew had settled, this place called Dio. And then as they said goodbye, God spoke to Abram and said, "How great is the outcry against Dio, and how very grave is their sin." And hearing the tone of anger and vengeance in God's voice, Abraham sensed that God was up to something. And Abraham said, "Will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within Dio. Will you sweep away that place and not forgive it for 50 righteous seminarians?" And God said, "You obviously don't know about Dio." But you do make a point. So God said, "If I find 50 righteous seminarians at Dio, I will forgive the whole place for their sake." And right there, sensing that a deal just might be possible, Abraham began to bargain with God. 50 went to 45, went to 40, and still Abraham persisted, for he loved the parties at Dio. Then Abraham said, "Oh, do not be angry, Lord, if I speak. Suppose 30 are found there who are righteous. For the sake of 30, will you destroy it?" And God relented once more. And working on God's conscience, Abraham continued to negotiate him or her or them all the way down. But when Abraham got God down to 10, God would not be moved any further. For the sake of 10 righteous seminarians, God said, "I will not destroy it." The die was cast. Dio's future hung in the balance. This didn't give Abraham much comfort. For he had been to Dio, and he had to admit he could scarcely imagine finding 10 students there at all. To say nothing of 10 righteous students. Still knowing he had the best deal he was going to get, he got up and looked up into the sky and asked St. Jude to intercede on Dio. Meanwhile, Abraham's nephew Lot was at the Milton Gate, at the entrance of Dio. And it was then that 2 visitors came. Some say they were angels, and walked through. After an incredibly polite conversation, and after some urging, the angels came into Lot's house to spend the night. And Lot made them a feast of unleavened bread, served with wine and honey, and in the kindest way. But before he could see them to their beds, there was a knock at the door. For the neighbors had seen their visitors, and they wanted to have some fun too.
Were those neighbors the seminarians?
We will have to see. I should think so, but let's get back to the story. Bring out the men to us so that we may know them, they shouted. Unfortunately, Lot knew what that meant. It meant that those men wanted to get close to Lot's visitors. Really close. Probably too close. So Lot went out to them and begged them to reconsider their devices and desires. He even tried to be reasonable and offered them other pleasures in exchange. Lot begged, but they were not interested in the other pleasures found in Dio. They showed no interest in studying the Bible or learning their Greek, to say nothing of theological ethics. But just when things seemed to get out of hand at the door, the angels whom Lot was protecting drew Lot inside and struck those intruders with blindness, and they were unable to get in the door. The degenerates were left outside of God's graces.
Were they the seminarians?
They might have been the seminarians. But let's get back to the story. It was early the next morning that the men told Lot to go, to take with him his wife and his 2 daughters and leave this place. For not only were their cones set up and the roads all around Dio were being dug up already, but God was set on destroying that wicked place with hellfire and brimstone. And after several detours, they reached the edge of the city, and the angels told Lot and his family to run and not look back. And when they were at some distance, God rained sulfur and fire and brimstone from heaven on that wicked place. But Lot's wife looked back and turned into a pillar of salt. Now, I wonder, what part of the story did you like best?
I like the idea of there being 10 students at Dio at all.
I like the part where the seminarians got what they deserved from God. Fire! Brimstone!
I wonder if the seminarians were unrighteous because they skipped the daily office?
Now, if you added the associates, like Ben, would there be 10 righteous?
I wonder.
I wonder if the seminarians were unrighteous before they even got to Dio.
I wonder if it was raining lava and rock, or if it was just fire.
If we counted the seminarians and the associates and the graduate students who come to lunch, and maybe even the organ students who's the chapel, then could there be 10 righteous?
I wonder if the students are unrighteous because they spend too much time with UTC students.
I wonder if the bishop thinks they're unrighteous.
You know, I bet if you asked Professor Farrow, he might have an idea of what makes them righteous.
I wonder if that's why the principals keep leaving.
I wonder if God has any more ideas about fixing Dio. I hope so.
We'll have to wait and see. I wonder.